Hello, we are Rhinotech, and we are a hobby YouTube channel. And I'm Ryan.
I'm Marcus, and today we are brewing on a budget.
Yes, and we'll show you these ingredients today. So before we start, just know I have had a lot of experience with making wine and mead. I've made quite a few, and I know the stuff I'm going to be doing today is very crude and very rudimentary. This is because I'm just now getting back into the hobby. I don't have the proper equipment anymore, but I'm going to in time. But today I want to prove that you can do it on a budget with stuff you can find either at a garage sale or at a convenience store. You know, we got our ingredient. Like I said, here's the ingredients. Everybody's going to be really hateful, but this is great. These are raisins, not grapes. These are beautiful raisins. Chopped up. Took me 2.5 hours with Marcus here. Chopped this up for 2.5 hours.
With scissors.
Yeah, with scissors. That was totally fun. I tried to wrangle my kids into doing it. Even try to give them $5. You know, that's a good thing about having kids and hobbies, because you can always get them to do something. If you can get them to do something, it's just as good as slave labor, because they don't have to pay them anything. What did you think about cutting them raisins up for Daddy?
The raisins were sticky, and I didn't really like the way that they were sticky.
How about how many you had to cut? Was it too many?
It was like...
Was it a whole lot?
Yeah, it was not a whole lot, but it was...
Will you do it next time?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. One last note I want to make about these beautiful raisins. A lot of people are going to be like, no, this is blasphemy. Raisins are not nutrients. They're grapes. They're dried grapes. They're special friends. They're going to have notes kind of like caramel and stuff like that. And that's actually kind of what I'm looking for, hence the other ingredients that we're going to move on to. Like this 2 pounds of honey. If I didn't say, this is 5 pounds of raisins. 2 pounds of honey. Some cinnamon. Yeah. And imported Madagascar vanilla beans. And none of this stuff is sponsored, and we just to clarify that, it's just the fact that, you know, it's stuff I can find at my local grocery store. And all this, including the heinous, like 4 or 5 pounds of raisins here. The honey was probably the most expensive out of all of it, costing me about $40 in all for all of this. It's not cheap, but not super expensive. But the notes we're going to be looking for are like the caramels and the vanilla. So we're going to try to make it kind of candy-y. But the stuff that we're going to be working with is stuff you can find at a garage sale. Like, we're going to have bottles that just look out of place, but we're going to prove that you can use them. I'm also going to try 2 different ways of doing fermenting. We're going to do a cheap gas lock, which I'm going to make I've made out of a balloon, which it sounds heinous, but I'm pretty sure, I am almost for certain it's going to work, because I picked the right kind of balloon. It should work just fine. The other one will be an open to air, so it can breathe. We'll get into more of that when I get to the setup. One of the things we're going to do, like I'm getting ready to start, is to get ready to make my must. I'm going to put all this, I'm going to boil it down, not boil it down, but like I'm going to heat it up, get it wet, get it worked so I can pour it into different jugs without having to really work it too much. I will do that off camera. But right now, I'm going to come up with other ideas. And I really want you guys to really think about things that you do as hobbies that even if it's not a hobby that I know of, or someone, you have a hobby that no one ever heard of, you know, just I want to hear everybody else's hobbies because I want to learn different hobbies. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do something, because a lot of times when you add oxygen to these, this one isn't going to be that big of a deal. You'll see in a minute. This one will be needed. Oxygen and yeast. What happens is yeast needs oxygen to multiply. But afterward, you don't need oxygen to survive. They don't need oxygen to survive. They need like CO2, but not too much CO2. And also, if you put too much CO2, you'll get bad flavors in your wine, and it's no good for anything. So what you're going to do is you're going to want it to vent the CO2 out, but don't want oxygen in, because oxygen will also let mold and fungus grow, and you'll, instead of getting wine, you'll end up with vinegar. So make sure that's another reason why you want to sanitize, because if you don't, you'll end up with vinegar or poison. Pick your poison, I guess. All right. Go wash up, punk. And now that we're magically back to where I'm sitting and all the stuff is in front of me, the yeast has been pitched. We used Red Star yeast that you can make bread with. Not because it's not the best thing you can use. I'm going to tell you right here, right now, it's probably one of the worst things you can use to do wine with. But you can buy it at Walmart, a Payless, Kroger, whatever you have nearby, any kind of grocery store. You're going to be able to find that kind of yeast in the baking section. Proving the point, more towards brewing on a budget. It's cheap, it's effective, it works. Just find the best ingredients that you can find on a budget. And that's kind of what I did, and it's super sweet, super caramely, really sweet. But what we did here is different. I've never done it this way. This is a cheesecloth over a giant punch thingy. This is the biggest one for me. I've never done it this way. It's going to be interesting to see how this works. I don't know exactly how long this one's going to sit and ferment, because it's going to keep adding oxygen and it's going to keep trying to go. And honestly, I'm probably going to let it, because one of my other videos is that I have planned. We're going to do fun things and we're going to learn more things. And this could work. It could turn out horrible. I did my best to keep it from, so I made sure all my equipment was properly sanitized, because I knew that I was going to be doing it this way. It's not my preferred way, but it is what it is. But this side, oh boy, this is going to be so much fun. You're all going to realize, wait, that's a balloon. Yes, it's a balloon. It's actually, if you look at the very front, that is a punchy balloon. You know, where you blow it up, and it has a rubber band, you punch it, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, it has perfect little slots where little holes come out of. I thought it was going to be cool to do. And it also acts like a little bladder. But as the idea behind it is, as the CO2 starts to build up in this, it's going to want to blow up the balloon, right? So this tube right here is going to blow up a little bit, and then it's going to release kind of into this kind of fart bladder, as I'm going to call it. But it's going to come out these little holes, and it will never really fully blow up, but it will not let oxygen back in. As you can see, it seals itself. That's why I picked such a heavy balloon. But yeah, you can get these from Walmart, Payless, dollar stores, whatever, for really cheap. in the party section, toy section, whatever. Just throw it on there. And it's a cheap airlock. I'm going to have them kind of ask me some questions, like ideas behind stuff and why certain ingredients or why a certain method.
I have one that I thought of.
Yes, Joe.
How?
Yes,
I
Joe.
was thinking, how similar is this, and the difference between this and like homemade root beer?
Homemade root beer wouldn't have alcohol. It's root beer was invented mostly invented or widely circulated during Prohibition times as a
Could you make
substitute.
a root beer doing it almost?
Could you make a root beer? Most definitely.
With this process?
Yes, you can do that. You can make a hard root beer if you wanted to. Maybe one day, if I get enough votes, I can do that. I'll do that. I'll look up how to do it, and you guys will. It will be your fault.
I'd like to see that.
Shh. Just playing. All right.
Why did you use cinnamon and vanilla as your extra ingredients,
flavors?
extra flavorings?
Because the raisins will, because they give off like they should, because if you think about it, it's a condensed grape juice, right? They got super condensed, almost like a tar. Trust me, I almost killed my food processor trying to take a shortcut cutting these raisins. Dear God, I wish I would have recorded it, but it would have took 2.5 hours of time. And I don't think that would be boring. But the flavor should come out kind of tasting like a caramel or some kind of candy. And I absolutely love vanilla. And vanilla and caramel put together, mwah, beautiful, beautiful idea. The raisin, the cinnamon, just to play off them candy notes even more, right? Also it also floats, so it might give the yeast a thing to raft onto. And as they raft up, I'll shake them down. And I'm going to do updated videos, shorts of me just shaking the crap out of it at least once a week. And we can see the process as it's going. But yeah, I picked the flavors as if I was baking. That's why I picked this, because I like to, when I bake or I cook, I like my flavors to blend and be something like I would eat on a regular basis. And I honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that I just threw yeast in it, I would easily just pick a spoon and just eat all of that right now. That was really good. Any other questions?
Is there also a process of making this without alcohol?
Most definitely.
Like something you can make for your kids, or
Yeah, you can make the must. You can definitely make the must. You just make the ingredients, cook it down, strain it. But you want to, if you're going to do that, you're going to want to boil it to make sure all the ingredients get really homogenized. I didn't boil this. I brought it up to temperature where it just stopped sticking together.
so it could also be kid friendly.
It could be kid friendly if you just give them the wine must. But then you can turn around and say, "Hey kid, I like the fact that you like my wine must, but I love you. But I'm gonna throw yeast in it, and I got wine now. You know, you had enough, child. Enough. Any more?" My big thing was, one of the things I was really interested in was the fact that, you know, a lot of people there's two different sides. Some people say you have to do it this way. Some people say you have to do it this way. I'm going to say on both sides, you can do it this way, you can do it that way, you can do it. There's people in jail that have made in bags and what stuff that you use to, like soap bottles and stuff like that, toilet hooch. You know, fermenting in very unfamiliar ways. But we've, as a human race, has been fermenting for millions and millions of years. You know, the first time, some of the first examples would be like wild fermentation of our ancestors. Like cavemen would have found trees with honey in it. I've seen bunch of bees, and then one day the rain went and the bees disappeared. So they went up there and they drank it, and they were like, "Oh, this don't taste good." Okay, it tastes okay, but at least the bees aren't stinging us, and it's still kind of sweet. But then they realized, "Oh, I really feel funny now." You know, they were eating and drinking things that were technically rotted, but they would have first been like, "Oh, this is not good, but it's good enough to survive on." But then they realized, "Oh, now I feel funny," you know, that kind of thing. That's why I was like, "Oh, I was okay with doing it this way," because they wouldn't have had airlocks during like ancient Roman times or the time of ancient Egypt. They wouldn't have airlocks. They would have open vats. There's a bunch of evidence of open vat turning into beer. They even tried to get rid of yeast when they figured out what yeast was. That's another big thing for me, was yeast shouldn't be that. Could be important because, yeah, it is important as you get down the line, because certain yeast are better at doing certain things. But back then, they didn't even know yeast existed. They just realized if they did this, this would happen. And this is what I'm showing you guys how to do it at home. So there's going to be a lot of mixed reviews on this, where you're going to be like, "Oh, how much did you use this? How much of that did you use?" Like I said, I personally used between a 2-gallon and a 1-gallon container. I used 5 pounds of raisins, 2 pounds of honey, 4 sticks of cinnamon, and 2 full beans of Madagascar vanilla, and added water.
I have a question. I just thought.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I had relatives, my elders, that would make sun tea.
Sun tea.
Now, like, this process, putting it in the sun.
Yeah, you could actually kill the yeast that way. You're not going to want direct sunlight. You're going to want
Just
a warm place, but not over warm. So you're not going to want to put this out in your shed, because it's going to get hot and die. You're going to want to put it in a dark place. You can put it under a desk. You can put it in a closet. I always keep my room dark, so that's where mine's gonna stay. It's gonna be in our bedroom, away from the kids, away from the stupid cat, because you might be like, "Oh, that's animal abuse." This is a dumb cat. And you might see him from time to time in our videos. You might even see Smog over here, who's just chilling. She's my beautiful spokes lizard. Starting to see it's already kind of frothing a little bit. That's the oxygen, and the yeast is already starting to move around and getting into things as we're kind of talking. And that's also the raisins starting to absorb the other stuff and kind of becoming grapes again. So, man, those would be good right now to eat. I tell you what. Yeah, a lot of things I like to do when I ferment is I like to watch as things happen. I like that's why I got into brewing. I really like chemistry. I like physics. I like science and history, and brewing happens to have all of that. It doesn't have just one little thing. There's molecular change happening. There's bio mechanics going on. There's fluid dynamics going on. A lot of cool sciencey things that you can just do, and you can just watch it happen. And it's a miracle, and there's a history behind it, a huge history behind it. And because if you think about it, if you could think of anyone other than your children who've never heard of alcohol, I will give you a round of applause. Because it's everywhere. Every continent. Except, I think, Antarctica. We'll have to change that one day. But we will definitely keep you guys updated on that as they go. I'll do as things get kind of crazy. But a lot of things you do when you have these, you want to keep them. You want to keep them. Try to keep them at a temperature that kind of stays similar. And I don't have we try to keep our lizard safe, so our light is as good as it gets for now until we get better equipment. But we keep our house pretty decent toasty, just basically for the lizard. But by now we've gotten quite accustomed to it. But
is there a recommended temperature for fermentation?
Probably. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's got to be. It can't be any higher. I know it can't be over 100. I know it can't be over. I don't even think it can hit 90, because at that point you're starting to damage things.
Right.
But you also don't want it to get too low either, because you won't be able to reproduce.
So would you say 60, 70?
60s and 70s, probably. Fahrenheit, by the way. Trust me, if I get any views from outside the world, if you see this video and you're outside the country of the United States, give me a holler. Leave where you're from, please. That would make my life dream come true. And I will also be able to do cool other things in time. Any other questions?
I just gotta make sure to say, please like this video, subscribe, and if you hit that like button,
good luck for y'all. And also hit that bell. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. And goodbye.